All right, here we are, live once again on a Sunday morning, and glad to be here. Glad to be with you. And pushed it back a little bit today, but we're going to get this done, get out of the way, and let you get on with your day. Um, Today, we're just taking another look at this venture into the ministry about being called to serve and not to be served. We're looking at Mark chapter 10, verse 45. We're looking at the the ESV. The ESV says, "For even the Son of Man," talking about Jesus, the Son of Man, "came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." He came to serve and not to be served. And so this is a direct response to the insistence of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, on where they're going to be seated when Jesus enters into glory. Basically, where are you going to leave us as part of your legacy of leadership? Where will we fall out into this thing? How will the chips fall in our favor as James and John, the sons of thunder? And Jesus questions them. Hey, can you drink of the cup that I'm going to drink? Oh, yeah. Can you suffer the baptism that I'm going to undergo? Oh, yeah, we got to. We're ready. We're prepared. Now, listen, in verse 41, it says, I'll just read it plainly from what it says in the ESV of Mark 10:41 about what James and John said when it hit the ears of the other 10. Mark 10:41 ESV. My Bible reads, "And when the 10 heard it," talking about the other 10 excluding James and John, "they began to be indignant at James and John." Well, some church folks know what that means. Indignant. They understand good and well what that means. They were infuriated. They were upset. They did not like what they were hearing. They were not, as Paul said, not in agreement with what James and John were doing, in particular, how they were trying to get into a place where Jesus could let them know, hey, when I go, I got you. I got you covered. You're one of my favorites. And Jesus wasn't playing that. And so despite the feelings of the 10, Jesus called them all to him and said, those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be among you. But whoever would be great among you, you must be a servant. Right? And whoever must be first among you, you must be a slave. Right? So there's this idea, right? This concept that Jesus begins to pour into them at Mark 10:43, that if you're going to be great among this group, you're gonna have to be you're gonna have to learn to be a servant, right? And a lot of what we get on servant leadership comes from this and the accompanying verse of Mark 10:45, right? When you top, you gotta learn to live at the bottom. If you're gonna be first, you're going to be last. You know, it deals with what can you live without. And part of this is putting it back out there that as servant leaders, Jesus is the best example to follow. When it comes to servant leadership, Jesus is the best example to follow. And I say that wholeheartedly because look at what he's saying here in Mark. And when you look at Mark, Mark is an action-packed, fast-moving, fast-paced, action-oriented gospel that compared to Matthew, which reads like a saga, right? Mark would be comparatively like a video game or anime compared to a Matthew. Just boom, 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 constantly moving, right? That would be putting, you know, War and Peace up against Fortnite. It's totally different aspects of it. And so Mark, in sharing this particular story, it fits with the action-oriented aspect of Jesus, the servant king, Jesus in motion, Jesus in action, throughout the thematic gospel of Mark. Now, from a leadership standpoint, Jesus is sharing, hey, I get it. You think you want it. But this mission is about service and sacrifice, right? This ministry is about service and sacrifice. I think if you listen to me, my message is about service and guess what? Sacrifice. And so what he's sharing with these guys is you can't drink from this cup if you're not willing to make the sacrifice. You can't take on this baptism if you're not willing to make the sacrifice. And as much as you think you are prepared, there is no substitute for coming into this and understanding that this is the mission and the message of the Messiah. This is why I came, right? The service came not to be served, but to serve, right? You get that? That's what the service is. It came not to be served, but to serve. You don't get any more direct about service than that, because that's what he's saying. That's how he's hinging his ministry and message on, hey, look, y'all, this is why I came. This is what I'm here for. And so that covers the service part, right? Came not to be served, but to serve. But then there's this other part that we don't talk about a lot. And that's the quote unquote B portion of Mark 10:45, where he's dealt with the service, and now he simply says, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Boom. How did that happen? That's sacrifice. Came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That's service and sacrifice. That's the whole gamut right there. That's everything you need. Boom. That's why he came. That was his mission in a nutshell, in a single verse. And it's supported by the preceding verses 43 and 44, right? You cannot sit up here and tell me that Jesus didn't address the issue head on. First, he addressed it with the two of them. Hey, do you really know what you're asking for? Because this is what my mission is about. Service and sacrifice. Oh yeah, we got it. And when the others heard it, then Jesus addresses it with all of them. Hey, look, we're not gonna beat around the bush. This is what you know about what happens among the Gentiles and how they do things. But as far as we go, this is how I'm coming with it. This is what I came for. This is what I'm about. Service and sacrifice. There's no major loss there. Get it and get an understanding of it. That's what Jesus came to do. He came to serve and he came to make a sacrifice. And it's not any question about how that comes about or how that goes on. We see that in the Gospels. Jesus came headed for the cross. Jesus came headed for a sacrifice to bring about the redemption of God's people to God. He came to die for folks' sins. He came to save his people. That's what the name means. Jehovah is my salvation. Come on. Yahweh is my salvation. Take it how you want to. Take translations of it different ways. Yahshua, Yeshua. But it's about that sacrifice leading to salvation. And so when Jesus says my mission is about service and sacrifice, as a servant leader, Jesus presents the ultimate sacrifice in his sacrificial level of leadership. To die for someone else, to die for a friend, to die for someone's sins, and they're not even accepted for one, but then to die for someone else's sins, and they're spitting on you. They're hurling insults at you. They're calling you out of your name. They're mocking you. They're making fun of you. And you're up here making a sacrifice for them and then push it all aside and say, Father, forgive them. Well, they know not what they've done. Father, forgive them. They don't even understand it. And so that example of Jesus being able to offer forgiveness in the midst of his service and sacrifice, the ultimate that he's doing, is what we get in Stephen when he's attacked by a brutal mob of religious rulers for becoming the first martyr because he stood up on the points of salvation. He stood up on the points of servanthood. He stood up on the points of the Savior, and he stood up against what was then the Sanhedrin and said, you ought to come over on this side. We're not going to comply with your demands. Hashtag Team Jesus. Let's go.